Good afternoon. On today's programme, RAF Fighter Command reveals the true story of our victory in the Battle of Britain. In a shocking turn of events, Germany breaches the Nazi-Soviet non-aggressor pact and invades the USSR. And after 3 days of hard fighting, followed by a heartbreaking defeat, Prime Minister Winston Churchill brings in General Claude Auchinleck to commander of the North African campaign. Good afternoon and welcome to the World War Service. I am your host, Captain Heath Thatcher. Last year, many of you in London and in the surrounding areas will no doubt remember the regular and ruthless attacks by the German Air Force on British soil. The Blitz, as it came to be known, levelled buildings and airfields far and wide. While many remember the carnage, we are now able to bring you the story of how Fighter Command fought back the airborne menace. Our reporter, James Matthews, has more.
After receiving no sign of capitulation from the British government following the evacuation of Dunkirk, the Germans drew up plans to invade Britain and bring her to heel. However, no invasion by sea could be successful unless Germany owned the skies. The Luftwaffe sent out their initial offensive on August 13, 1940, concentrating on destroying air bases, landing strips, and communications buildings. While losses were high, the RAF held fast, sending its best from Britain, Canada, Australia, France, Belgium, and even Czechoslovakia to fight against the German bombers. The plan of counterattack was simple. Fly as high as possible to meet the enemy, position yourself in front of the sun to blind them, engage with a volley of machine gun fire, and then break away. However, strong resistance led to German attacks becoming more severe. On the 31st of August, Fighter Command suffered the worst bombings of the entire battle. Believing that the RAF was on its last legs, the attention of the Luftwaffe switched to crushing British morale. On September 7th, the bombing of London began. As a retaliation against air raids on German industrial targets, London was bombed for 57 consecutive nights. In the absence of German attacks, Fighter Command was able to regain its strength and send out fighters to defend the capital. Without being able to curtail the overwhelming force being sent to ward off their assault, the Germans were forced to end their bombing campaign, in hopes of a less costly, long-term battle plan. While London may lie partly in ruin, the will and spirit of the British people has never been stronger. All thanks to the Royal Air Force.
This morning, on the 22nd of June 1941, the German army attacked and invaded the Soviet Union, ending the Nazi-Soviet non-aggressor pact. Reports are coming in of German bombers targeting Soviet positions in Poland and armoured divisions being sent into the Eastern Territories. We are able to speak to our correspondent, Ivan Tarkovsky, currently stationed in Russia. Ivan, how did the fighting begin?
Our troops on the border were alerted at dawn to prepare for combat, but not to advance or provoke the Germans. I believe poor communications meant many divisions did not receive the order and were unaware of attack. Bombing in Soviet-occupied Poland began at 3:15. We were finally ordered to counterattack at 7:15.
What have been your orders since this initial assault?
At 9:15, Stalin ordered a general counteroffensive on the entire front without any regards for borders. This is still in progress.
It sounds as if this was a surprise to everyone. Were there any signs of the attack?
There has been many signs that invasion was coming. Since the beginning of the month, over 300 spies have been captured. Our recon planes have spotted German armor building up on the border, as well as increased numbers of soldiers. Hitler also explicitly wrote about taking land in the east for his people, so I don't think anyone should be surprised.
Why were the troops not mobilized despite these signs?
Stalin has benefited from the Nazi-Soviet non-aggression pact quite well. We have been receiving resources from the deal without giving the same to Germans. It also gave us time to fortify ourselves against the new apparent invasion. I believe Stalin may have foolishly been too trusting of Hitler, despite the signs. But don't let anyone in Kremlin know I said that.
Any predictions on what is about to happen?
I do not think we will be able to resist much longer. The Germans are advancing quickly, just as they did in the West. We will have to fall back and wait till they lose their supply lines or the winter weakens them to have a chance at regaining our land.
Thank you, Ivan. We'll bring you more on the situation in the East as it develops. Over the last week, a major operation in North Africa was carried out by British forces to relieve the port of Tobruk, currently encircled by German forces. Operation Battleaxe made use of tanks and infantry to capture key strategic points, such as the Halfaya Pass. However, the operation failed and has led to General Claude Auchinleck exchanging duties with General Wavell in commanding the British in North Africa. For more, here's Clive Anderson with the front report.
The attack on German positions in North Africa was supposed to begin a week earlier, on June the 7th, but due to delays in reinforcements began on the 15th. It was comprised of 3 squadrons, A, B and C, each with their own targets. At 600 hours, C Squadron opened fire on the Germans and Italians at the Halfaya Pass, who quickly retaliated, with the surrounding area also being heavily mined. Losses were heavy. Meanwhile, to the west, B Squadron were able to capture Fort Capuzzo by noon and repelled multiple counterattacks from German panzer divisions. A Squadron's target was the Hafid Ridge, but they faced much opposition from German anti-tank positions in the area. A lack of radio communications led 5 to their demise, and a later ambush left 11 British tanks destroyed, with another 6 being heavily damaged. On the 16th, attacks on the Halfaya Pass continued. Despite the German forces being surrounded and succumbing to attrition, no attempts were made to push them due to the already heavy losses experienced by British armour. At Capuzzo, another German attack was repelled due to a divided force and heavy British fire from the British. This allowed the capture of Solon Barracks to the east behind the Halfaya Pass, cutting off retreat and flanking routes for the Germans. Earlier, at dawn, a mass German counterattack was led by Erwin Rommel. Superior range and tanks allowed them to swiftly push against British forces in the area, with the intention of sweeping in from the west to cut off the attackers. This plan came to fruition on the 17th, with Rommel's Panzer Division pushing back British forces on the west. This move simultaneously regrouped Germans with their forces at the Halfaya Pass and cut off remaining British forces at Capuzzo, which had been evacuated in preparation for the counterattack. The operation was not at all the success that Commander General Wavell had hoped for, and as a result, his post is now being taken by General Auchinleck. A counterattack is sure to be launched in the foreseeable future. All the while, Tobruk and its defenders still lie under siege.
Thank you, Clive. We are now back with further information on Germany's invasion of Soviet soil. The German army's attacks were aided by Finnish and Romanian troops as they pushed forward into Soviet territory. It's being reported that the attacks, both ground and air, completely destroyed the Soviet command and communications, leaving many Soviet troops without direct indications from Moscow. Joseph Stalin issued NKO Directives No. 2 and 3, calling for a general counter-offensive, without any regards for borders. Up in the air, the Luftwaffe carried out attacks in order to disrupt the organization and mobilization of the Soviet troops. With such advances made by the German army, the fate of the USSR seems uncertain. It has truly been a hard week for the Allied forces, with the Axis becoming more aggressive and expanding their attacks on different fronts. But fear not, fellow citizens, for we must keep our heads up high and continue fighting for the eradication of evil. The Axis powers may be advancing, but we will halt them, just like we did 25 years ago. We beat them once, we will beat them again. I am Captain Oliver Heath Thatcher, and I will see you next week with new updates from the battlefield.